I am Cynthia Kay, and if you are not awake, you will be by the time you get to the end of this episode of Awakened Nation with Brad Zollis. How's that?
Boom.
Do I have
That's
a career waiting for me in broadcasting? Oh, no, wait, I already did that.
a huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Zollis, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people just like you and me from all over who are doing amazing things to Awakened Nation. Hey, everybody. If you are a small business owner and you want to go big, today's guest is not just a beautiful author, talented brain in the studio today. She has owned a business, several businesses that actually, so she's not speaking from, hey, I'm going to make this up. It's a fantasy. She knows business. So welcome to the show,
Oh,
Cynthia Kay.
well, thank you, Brad, and thank you for not saying how long ago it was that we met.
Yes.
Long time ago.
Yes. I apologize. You're not supposed to mention a lady's, time on Earth.
It's
Um,
okay. I know how old I am.
yeah, a big shout out to Tony Rubleski. That's actually how we met. We met at a mastermind uh, way back when in Chicago. And
Correct.
this is the best part about you. When you got up on stage, there were two things that took place. Everybody leaned in because your stories are amazing. Your
Oh,
business stories are just head and shoulders above everybody else. And the second thing, everybody had their head down writing because your advice was just, we were like, what? Wait a minute. Everything was a gem. So if
oh,
you
well,
haven't
thank
hired,
you.
you're welcome. You deserve all the accolades, but thank you for being on today's show.
Yeah, well, thank you. Let's chat.
Let's chat and chew, as they say.
Okay.
Let me start with your bio. Cynthia Kay is the author of Small Business, Big Success. And we're going to be talking about, as I said before, how small business owners can grow by serving bigger businesses. This is going to be a lot of fun for some of you. She's an award-winning communications and media production company owner, and she was born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And she graduated from Michigan State University with a degree in applied voice and a minor in piano. And all I have to ask is, how in the heck did you wind up doing what you're doing with that degree?
Well, actually, it's kind of an interesting story. So I had enough credits, but I couldn't graduate early because there were a couple of classes I needed to take, like senior seminars.
Right.
And so I looked around the campus and went, what else can I do? And as it happened, the TV and radio department was across the street from my dorm. And I thought, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So
Mhm.
I marched myself over there and I actually got a double major in TV and radio and then
Nice.
went on to get a master's in communications. So
Wow.
kind of took a little side journey there, as we like to say.
Yes, but your media company, I mean, you've done work for Fortune 500 companies. I mean, I've seen your work. It's phenomenal.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, you've Fortune 500 global, the global 100 actually, to small businesses, nonprofits, and things like that. So, you're the real deal. Here's what impressed me in your bio also that was pretty cool. You advocate for small businesses, and you've testified in 2015 before Congress's subcommittee on small businesses. You've written a number of articles for the Washington Post, and you've been featured in Time Magazine and on NPR. In April of 2016, in April of 2016, you were featured in Entrepreneur Magazine's Ask the Pro. Um, you also blog for CEO Magazine, and you also have your own blog, which is www.bizthinking.com. That is the perfect URL, by the way. Um, and I wanted to go back in time, if I may.
So
You
I can
started,
redo it all over and do it better.
no, you talked in your book, you talked about this. You started working at I guess it was it was a dry cleaner. It was owned by these three Greek brothers, and they had a burger joint right next door. So this is the American dream. I'm Hungarian, and all my friends when I was growing up were the Greek kids, because we'd ride bicycles like, whose diner do you want to go to today? That's how it worked.
Where can we get free food?
Exactly. So let me ask you, what was that like? That was your first job
Yeah.
experience. You're a teen. Yeah, let's take us back in time.
You
How it
know,
all started.
it's interesting. So my dad was a CPA by background, right? He was
Hmm.
the only one in his family to have actually graduated from college. And he had two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. And so they were all trying to figure out like what was the career going to be. And they decided they'd go into business together.
Hmm.
So my uncle George had a job, a small shop, and he was, in the old days when people wore hats and he would clean
Yes.
the hats and form them.
Yes.
Well, so they got this idea of, well, what if we dry cleaned clothes? So the three brothers opened a dry cleaning store. And then, as you would have it, my Uncle Sam developed an allergic reaction to the chemicals.
Yes.
So, well, what's younger brother going to do? And of course, I mean, it's a family, so we're going to take care of the family. So they opened the burger joint across the parking lot, and Uncle Sam ran the burger joint, and Dad and Uncle George ran the dry cleaners. But I learned more cool lessons from watching my dad behind the counter, right? Working with customers or in the back on the pressing machine or,
Right.
running delivery errands. I mean, a lot of what I learned from going to the store with my dad when I was a kid, right?
Right.
And then as I got older, I got to do more stuff. I got to, go to the bank for them. I got to open and close the store. I mean, all the things that are part of what business is today, I learned in that little store. And all the cool lessons about people too, because I
Yeah.
think that was what they did so well. They worked with people. It didn't matter what the product was.
Right.
It was the service, right?
Right. My dad was a chiropractor and he had an accounting firm. And my grandparents owned a restaurant, which was a bar and a tavern. And I got to tell you, you're absolutely right. When you grow up around entrepreneurs, your business lessons, customer service, how to get things done on time, management, back end stuff, taxes, bookkeeping, blah, blah, blah. You're privy to it all. And a lot of people just don't realize that. You learned these lessons, at like 12 and
Yeah,
15.
exactly.
um, do you ever get frustrated? This is one of my pet peeves. And there's so many business authors out there, professors at colleges and universities, business gurus who've never owned a business. And that frustrates me all the
Yeah.
time because and the colleges refuse to hire, even to teach a small course, they refuse to hire people like you and I who've been on the front lines of business. Does that kind of
Yeah.
bother you sometimes?
I think well, not only people who write book, but consultants. And there are good consultants and there are not so good consultants.
Right.
What I have found is, and I've taught a number of college courses over the years, and I actually teach seminars. I go out and I teach, but to me, there is nothing that substitutes for actually having done it. The way I like to put it is, I have signed the front of a paycheck, right?
Right.
Lots of people sign the back of their paycheck. Of course, nobody signs them anymore, but you get the analogy. The
Yes.
analogy is when I talk about, you know, how do you respond to RFPs? How do you improve your operation? How do you hire the right people? I mean, I've done all that stuff and I haven't done it all well. I mean, I've made big mistakes, but every time I've made a mistake, I've learned something about
Right.
what not to do. And then I work with that. So I don't think there's anything that substitutes for experience. And I will tell you one of the things that I'm doing right now. I don't know if you're familiar with the Edward Lowe Foundation, but
No, I'm just
Edward
hearing.
Lowe was the inventor of kitty litter, right? And tidy cat. Yes.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, amazing. I've never met the man, but I've seen some of his videos. But
And you've
he
experienced
actually,
his products, right?
oh, yeah, yes. But one of the things that they have done is he set up a foundation that is an
Mhm.
operating foundation that helps entrepreneurs. And the reason he did this was because when he was doing his business, he didn't have peers. He didn't have people, other entrepreneurs to talk to. And what happens when you get a group of entrepreneurs in a room is like magic, right?
Yes.
So the Low Foundation does a lot of workshops and trainings for people, and they actually have what's called the entrepreneur in the room. And so they bring someone like me in, and there's a facilitator that does stuff, but I get to talk about the real stuff. So when they say, oh, I really made a mistake. I got a partner that I really shouldn't have gone into business with. I can go, oh, done that. Here's some things that you might want to think about. So, I think having people who have the experience, and I'm at the point in my life where honestly, I love to share. I will sit down with people a lot and talk about, should you do this? Should you not do this? And that's part of the advocacy piece that I think is important. I've been involved with the Small Business Association of Michigan as a board chair, and I've also been a board of the National Small Business Association. And
Mhm.
these organizations really do a lot behind the scenes and in front of the scenes that small businesses don't see, but to make sure that someone's out there looking out for their interests. Because
Right.
business owners are busy. I mean, you know this. Who's got
Yeah.
time to keep up with
Right.
things?
Hmm.
So it's good to do that, but it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I got to tell you, I don't know where the years have gone by to. When we talked about meeting in Chicago, I mean, that was a lot of years ago, and it's like just zoom. It just zoomed
Yeah.
right past.
It did. I'm actually astounded at the date. I know the date. I'm not going to say the
Oh,
date,
good. Thank you.
but when and we have to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Denise Griffiths for reintroducing us and bringing us back
Yeah.
around full circle, because when Denise reached out to me, she goes, "I had a fascinating discussion, with Cynthia Kay."
She's got the most amazing voice,
She
doesn't
does.
she? Oh,
And I may be the only person on earth who knows what she looks like besides her family. Uh, but she's the best hidden face of podcasting out there. No one knows what she looks like, but what an interview. And she did a really great interview with you. And I recommend anybody who is into your work go back and listen to
well, thank you.
Denise's show as well. Because she did a really deep dive into the book, which I love. And getting back to the book, Big Success, I love the subtitle. This always, to me, is the meat of any book. And your subtitle is Proven Strategies to Beat the Odds and Grow a Great Business. You said something in the book that I like. You point out why big businesses love small businesses. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of those, things that you pointed out in the book, which is, like you can work faster than everybody else is part of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and when I first started out, I didn't start out serving large businesses. That wasn't, to be honest with you, don't even know that that was part of the plan. But as time went on and I saw what it took to really grow a business, what I discovered is that there are very unique strengths of smaller organization, and they are things that large organizations really value. You mentioned one of them. It's
Mhm.
it's speed and agility.
Right.
If you know anything, in fact, I just was writing an article about collaboration and how in large companies there's almost too much collaboration, and so it
Yeah.
slows things down. And so when a large company comes to a company like mine, what they value is we don't have endless gatekeepers. We go, okay, this is the project. Here's what we're going to do. We have a process. We move things forward. We push back. We don't just do what they ask us to do, which I think is really key for, I don't care
Yeah.
who you're serving, really, but sometimes someone will come to you and they go, oh, here's what we want you to do. And if you're an expert in an area, you look at it and you go, yeah, well, that's not going to work.
That's
Um,
stupid.
that
That's
I
that's
wouldn't
what you
try
want to
that
say.
one. Don't
Yeah.
try that at home. And so, what we do is we look at it and we go, let us give you some fresh ideas about how you really want to approach that. So we kind of take that non-corporate view of how to do things and suggest things that are maybe a little outside of what they might consider. So I think that's another key piece of it. I think the other thing that they really appreciate is that we love having the business. And so
Mhm.
we're very much into the relationship, right? And many of the large companies that I know of, I mean, I'll answer the phone and they'll go, oh, you answered the phone. And I go, yeah, I heard we're working on X project. And they love that they can talk to an owner or
Yeah.
that they can talk to someone that is in the organization that knows about their project. They don't get handed off to people. And they don't normally get that kind of access if they're working with a very large company. So that relationship, I think, is really important. I mean, I have found over the years, some of the procurement buyers that we work with, I mean, they'll call me and they'll go, Cynthia, you know what? We've got someone who's asking for X kind of service. Is that something you can do? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's something we should be doing,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean,
What's that?
I'll give you a simple example. For the longest time, we didn't have anybody on our staff that was drone certified, right? Because everybody wants beautiful shots of drones, right?
Yes.
So a customer called us and said, hey, we think on this project we want that. I now have 4 certified drone pilots, soon to be 5 on staff. Why? Because we value that input that they're giving us to say, you know what, if you do this, we will buy that service. And I think the other thing is that a lot of times small businesses don't really take the time to get to know the buyers, to say, and buyers want to be educated. I mean, they really
Yeah.
do. I'll give you one example. I shall not say the name of the customer, but he sent me a contract that was like, I can't even tell you how long it was. It was like, and I called them up and I said, look, first of all, there's just a lot of stuff in this contract. And you want me to carry, I don't remember what it was, X amount of insurance liability before they'll let me go shoot in a plant. And I said to them, do you realize what it will cost me is more than the value of the job I'm doing for you? And they stopped and they went, what? And I go, yeah, for me to care. And maybe you don't realize that when we come in, I'm not coming in with massive, I'm literally walking in with cameras, lights, and we had a really good conversation and they said, we'll waive that. You don't have to do that. Now that
Wow.
we understand this, but there's where the small business has to take that time to educate the big customer and to really kind of wow them. And we can
Yeah.
do it.
I love that because I'm reminded of Linda Swindling. I don't know if you know who she is, but she talks about ask outrageously.
Yes.
She's
Yeah.
also specializes in negotiations,
Hmm.
and she tells this amazing story where she wanted to meet Jay Leno and get a photo with him, but she did like what most people do. She figured she'd ease into the conversation and be witty, and then she'd ask to get a
Do
picture.
you mind?
Yeah, and guess what happened? He moved on right after her first question, and she blew it. And the next woman got her picture with Jay Leno,
Right.
and Jay looked over at her and he goes, "You wanted a picture, didn't you?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, she asked," and that's when her journey began. Just reach out and ask. And when I'm hearing your story, I wonder how many of my audience members who are entrepreneurs get a little verklempt, as they say, when you have to ask, hey, remove that from a contract, or hey, you're asking me to carry $1 million of insurance when I'm coming in with two young people on a camera, and maybe a drone or two, and we're only going to be there for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Um, when you first started your career, was it hard to ask, or were you just, you're Greek, right? Am I
I was
right?
just going to say,
You're
I'm
Greek. You're
Greek.
used to doing that.
No, I will say that is one of the things that I learned from broadcasting. I spent 13 years in broadcasting before I opened my own shop. And so I had a lot of experience asking questions.
Right.
And I learned a really important lesson. You can ask anything, they might not answer, but if you don't ask it, you won't know. And
Yes.
and I think the other side of it also is it's really the way in which you ask the questions. It's the way in which you approach something, which, instead of being indignant about, you want me to do what? It's help me understand why that is, because I think maybe there's a disconnect here in like what I'm coming in to do. And I have found, and certainly it doesn't work all the time. I mean, there's some people who are, the rules are the rules and they don't break them for anybody. But what I found more often than not is that when people see that you take an interest in what they do and you want to make something better, they're willing to talk to you about, okay, how can I work with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've often had customers who have said to us, we need you to get on a plane and fly to do, and we only want one person.
Right.
And, because we want to keep costs low. And what I say to them is something like, okay, I can appreciate that, but do you realize it will take that one person longer to do the job than if I send two people in and they're more efficient and they're going to be able to do this and they're going to disrupt your operation for less time. And, so I
Right.
mean, some of it is, people kind of dig their heels in. And I think that's the other thing that big business really likes about small business is that we're a little more flexible about how to do things.
Yes.
Often when you work with a large company, they've got their standard way of doing it. If you don't do it this way, whereas a small company will go, yeah, what we can do this project this way. We can do that project that way. So it's a different mindset.
I pride myself in never having worked in the real corporate environment. And I put that in air quotes because
Yeah.
I always worked for production studios that, our systems were in place where they needed to be in place. And the rest, we didn't have bureaucracy and paperwork and memos. Um, I always like the quote from John Chambers, who was the former CEO of Cisco. And he said right after their stock plunged from like $89 a share down to 11 back in the early 2000s, he had the chutzpah enough to look at himself and say, I'm the one slowing this company down
Yes.
because everybody has to answer to me and send their memos to me and get permission from me. And
Mhm.
the reason I'm bringing this up is if you're an entrepreneur, you got to start delegating. You got to start letting go. You got to start asking outrageously. You got to negotiate better prices for what you're doing. Your model, you're going to constantly be doing these one-offs, in your business if you don't charge enough and you don't start thinking bigger. And that's why we have Cynthia on today to help us with this.
And something that you just said there that I think is really important is that the entrepreneur, the things that make you successful at startup are often the things that as your business matures become a disadvantage.
Oh,
And
yeah, yes,
yeah, and
yes.
I see it all the time, invariably. I've got a tremendous staff. I really do. I have an amazing group of people. And what I find when we hire someone new is they'll come in and they'll say to me, so how should I do this? And I will say to them, okay, and I'm not talking about a system because we have
You're right.
systems in place, but how should I approach X? And well, how do you think you should approach it? And they look at me and they go, well, and I go, look, here's the result we want to get. The way I will do it is very different, probably, than the way you will do it. It doesn't matter if you do it the same way I do it, as long as we get a good result.
Right.
That takes, though, a lot of introspection and thought on the part of the entrepreneur. Because if you're the bottleneck, you can't grow.
Yeah.
And too many times entrepreneurs love doing that work and they don't realize that their role changes. I mean, one of the things about this book that I'm really proud of, and by the way, it's not just my story. I've interviewed, because of my background in broadcasting, I mean, I went out and interviewed people from all over the country, small business
Right.
owners, experts, and I mean, I got some really amazing interviews. But what I did in the book was I took what I think is a very holistic approach, that I don't think other people have done, because there's success at startup and some people make it through that, but then there's success at operations, because once you get
Yeah.
started, you got to figure out how to operationalize everything. And this is
It's
where
true.
entrepreneurs are very bad. They don't want to put those things in place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's success at growth. Some people get it, they've got it running, but they can't grow it. They can't make
Yeah.
it past that thing. That takes a different mindset. And then the piece I'm really proud of is that I'm looking ahead to success at stepping out. Because where I have found most entrepreneurs fail is when they get to that place where they have not thought about the fact that, as I like to put it, someday you're going to get hit by a bus or something.
Yes.
Usually I'm the one that gets hit by the bus in the scenario, but it's like, or even if you don't, but you don't want to do that anymore, you need to start thinking about that. And there's some wonderful stories of people who took very different paths at stepping out. But when you look at that whole continuum,
Yeah.
it really requires a different skill set and a different mindset as you go through those phases.
It's so true. I mean, it's really how I graduated from being a production artist and an art director and a graphic designer to a creative director.
Exactly.
Because the more you expand your business, the less likely you're going to be able to grow if you still stay attached to the skill and the reason that you started the company.
Yeah.
So I'm a talented graphic designer. To grow much bigger, to have a staff, I will have to give up being the graphic designer
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
manage my staff in a way that says, this is my standard.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that like for you? Because I'm sure you had to grow just like everybody else, and that
Sure.
mindset had to shift.
Yeah. And I will tell you that I had an experience early on in my business that kind of shaped my thoughts about that very differently. When I first started the business, I had a partner, and I owned 51 and he owned 49. And, things went along pretty well for a number of years. And then what I discovered was that he was one of those people who didn't want to change, didn't want to
Right.
let go of anything, didn't want to teach anyone anything. And as a result, we got stuck, right? And I
Right.
didn't like being stuck. And I didn't like the idea that he didn't want to share his knowledge. So we brought in an editor and he wouldn't teach him. So needless to say, I dumped the partner and bought him out. But that experience of seeing what that did to other people in our organization really changed my thinking going forward. And even now, when I hire people, what I say to them is, you're responsible for making sure that that new person knows how to do what you do, maybe even do it
Mhm.
better than you. Because guess what? If you teach them to do that, you get to do something more exciting. And that's what it is it's okay, I've done this, and now it's time for me to move on and do something else. What's the next
Yes.
challenge? Now, some people don't like that.
Yeah.
I get that. Um, but I think what I was passionate about when I first started the business, getting the new customer, going out on the location, I still love that stuff. Now what I'm passionate about is seeing my youngest one, who's just been with us like 3 months, figuring out how to do stuff. And, I mean, now I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about teaching them. I'm passionate about going out and talking to other entrepreneurs, sharing what I've learned. So I think your passion and your focus changes. And you
Right.
can stay stuck, or you can put yourself out there and do something different.
Yeah. Well, in the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael
Yes.
Gerber, he talks about, why these businesses fail, these small businesses, and he uses a small bakery as an example.
Mhm.
And it really boils down to, that person started the business because they love to cook, they love to bake. And the reality is for you to grow your business, you have to stop working inside your business and
Mhm.
start working on your business.
But I'm gonna push back a little,
Sure.
because one of the things that I explore in the book is I talk about you need to have an exit plan before you even open the doors. And people go, "What? Why would I want to do that?" Well, because here's the thought. Let's say all you want to do is grow a lifestyle business. A
Right.
lifestyle business is very different than a business that you are growing as an asset that you're going to sell. If all you want to do is grow a lifestyle business, that's okay.
Yeah.
But understand that that's a different kind of an entity. Sometimes they call it a side hustle now. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a side. But I know someone who owned a huge restaurant, sold the restaurant, and now has a food truck and runs it with a part-time employee, happy as a clam, loves
Yeah.
it. Okay, it's a lifestyle business. He doesn't want 10 food trucks, he wants one. There's nothing wrong with that choice, but understand what those choices are so that you can make a really informed decision about the path you're going to take.
Yes. I think a lot of entrepreneurs enter the field, and here are some statistics I'm going to throw out. On average, in the United States, people start 4.4 million businesses per year.
Mhm.
That shifted in 2021.
Mhm.
42 million people voluntarily left their jobs in 2021.
The Great Resignation.
Yes.
That's what they called it. Mhm.
Are they what do they call it? Casual quitting or whatever? Yeah, yeah. And then here's what happened. 39% of those people that quit did so to start their own business. So that's 16 million. That's four times what usually happens. So people are passionate about being an entrepreneur, and it sounds sexy. I mean, we're like Jack Sparrow on the high seas with our ship, and we're pirates. That's the
Sure.
romanticized version of it. But the reality is you have to take out the garbage at the end of the day and then meet with your accountant on a Thursday, 2 days before taxes are due. Oh, and
Yep.
your corporate taxes are due in March. Your personal, it's people just don't realize we make it look easy, I guess, because
Mhm.
after years of
Well, if
stress.
you do it well, you make it look
Yes.
easy.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Um,
But
I'll give,
it's interesting that you point to those statistics, because for so many years prior to that, we actually had negative net growth in businesses.
really.
Yes, for many years, negative net growth. Then when all of this happened, there was this, and to be honest with you, that's part of the reason I wrote the book, is when we started to see with the organizations that I'm working with, all of these people, and some of them do have sort of a romanticized view of what it is to run a business.
Right.
And so you want them to be realistic, but you also want them to have passion. Because
Yes.
I didn't tell you, the passion is what carries them, and then build a good team. Got to have a team of people around you. Because if you don't, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble, especially these days with all the
Is
changes in regulations.
very true.
Yeah.
Uh, it's amazing to watch. And I say this a lot of times to people. We see a lot of young people who want to start businesses. And you talk a little bit about this in the book, how you can get so many great, fresh ideas from young people. But what I've noticed with younger people, and that's, Gen Z, millennials, even Gen X,
Mhm.
what it boils down to is they were raised differently than you and I.
Mhm.
So they were trained with computers before they could read, write, and speak in some cases. It's part of their medulla oblongata, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I did the research for my book, Liquid Leadership. And so what happens is they now have the capability of starting a business late at night on their laptop. When you've spent 20 years building your business up, they can
Mhm.
just walk away and become your competition overnight. Reed Hastings is a very good example of that. He founded Netflix, and
Sure.
it was really a response to taking back one of the movies late, which was The Right Stuff. He was like a couple weeks late, and they charged him $40 in late fees. Now, you may not know this, ladies and gentlemen, but back in the day, the late fee industry alone was $1 billion industry.
Oh,
You may not.
wow.
And so when Congress went to Blockbuster, they said, "Well, what are we going to do?" They didn't want to change their model. So Reed came along with Netflix. Just, hey, keep it as long as you want. It's a $10 a month fee, and that's it. So I love that. I think young people bring to the table that innovation, that
Absolutely.
efficiency, because they can't stand inefficiency. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I know you
Yeah.
touched on it in the book.
Well, one of the things that, so there's a couple of things. For the first time, I think in our history, we often have five generations working in the same workplace. So if you look at the age span in my
Right.
place, I mean, it's huge.
Right.
Um, Younger people, first of all, have a different mentality about how to accomplish things and what they want the work world to be like.
Right.
Now, they have that mentality when they work for someone else, and then when they work for themselves or they start their own business, that also kind of plays into it. What I have seen is that, at least with younger people, you have to be a little careful in saying, oh, they're an overnight success, because there are those who have been on, if you look at Shark Tank, I went and did some research, young people who have, gotten this money in, and some of the businesses do well, and some of them fail, just like every
Yes.
other business, right?
Yes.
I don't think
Mhm.
it's a function of age. I think it's just a function of what it was they were making, what the structure was like, what their thing is. But I do think that, younger people in many ways are more suited to startups these days because of all the tools that they have.
It's
That
true.
doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be successful in the long haul, though, because it
Right.
does take a lot of commitment and a lot of stick-to-itiveness. So, I mean, look at the failure rate of new businesses. You
Yeah.
know what amazes me? We have all these resources, all this training, all this stuff for new businesses. Failure rate hasn't changed in years, still the same. Most businesses don't make it past the first 5 years.
It's
Okay,
true.
why? If you can figure that one out, you win the jackpot.
I I think I've figured it out. Don't
Okay,
quote me on this. It has to do with something you mentioned earlier and one other thing. First, I have to point out that when the person starts the business, they a lot of times don't know how to pivot that business. They still stay stuck in the, hey, we always sold books like this, and we're not going to move. The second thing is something you mentioned earlier. Let's see if I can remember it. Oh, this is what it was. The second reason that businesses fail after the first 5 years is, and I lost the thought again. Here it is. Hold on.
well, a lot of
Um,
times it's that they don't let go and build an infrastructure,
that's
right?
yes, very
They
much so.
need the infrastructure. You just can't do everything. And
Yes.
if you try to do it, you'll make yourself crazy.
And that second part that I keep forgetting is as the business grows, they forget they have to let go of that old job that created the business, their talent, their skills,
Mhm.
whatever, and rise up and become a business owner instead of the production line person who's
Yeah,
cranking out all the work.
yeah.
They don't grow with the business. So at some point, you may call yourself a CEO, but you're the person who's doing all the bookkeeping and all the work and all this. But as you grow, you become the CEO. And so I think that is everything we've just said is why so many businesses fail, along with sometimes they start a business that has a life cycle because it's a trend that
Sure.
becomes a fad and it drops off. Right
Yeah.
now, AI is predicted to destroy a lot of, business skills. And we have to look at that, so
Mhm.
you can't avoid the changing landscape of business and the marketplace.
Yeah. Well, and change is hard. I understand that. But I also think that if if you truly care about your organization, um, as the person who's the leader, I mean, there's a book there's a chapter I go, you're the boss now, what? You know, it means you have to think differently.
Mhm.
And if that doesn't suit you, then maybe you need to think about, are you really the right person to lead the organization?
Yeah.
And there are people who step out of an organization and let someone else come in and lead it. They might still own it,
Yeah.
they might still advise, but they're not running it.
Right.
And I get excited about new stuff. I love trying something new. But not everybody's like that.
No.
But more and more, I don't care what job you're in. I don't care if you're working in a manufacturing plant, and I have lots of manufacturing clients. They don't go in and do the same thing every day. It's
Right.
not it is a completely different world. You have to use your thinking skills and your creativity. And so almost any job that you have these days, whether you own the business or not, you've got to be willing to be flexible and change.
That is so true. How do we get a hold of you? Where do we go?
Oh, well, I'm right here right now. Nope. Yeah. Just thought it. Well, so there's a couple of ways, but Cynthia Kay biz.com. That's one way. Cynthia at thinkck.com is my email, and book is on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Noble. It's really a fun read. And
Yeah,
like I
I
say,
enjoyed it. Yeah.
I'm really appreciative of all of the people that were so welcoming. Even people I didn't know, when I reached out and said, I've heard you have a great story, and would you be willing to be interviewed? And people were just awesome about that. So it's fun.
Yeah.
And I got another one in the hopper, so I'm working on that. So
In the
stay
hopper.
tuned.
Another one in the hopper. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's
There
my
you go.
boss. Um, how do you help people? This is what I want to get into. How do you help the small business owners? You do consulting and you come in and all that, but let's go into some detail of what you do.
Okay, well, a couple of things. So for one thing, I've served on boards, which I've actually served on a number of small business boards, business association boards, where we provide services. I currently sit on the Small Business Association of Michigan's foundation board, and our whole mission is to help entrepreneurs. And there's programming available, there's all kinds of assistance available. I serve on the PAC, which is, I know people don't love political action committees, but one of the reasons that I love this particular PAC is that we're nonpartisan, and one of the things we do is we support candidates who are doing the right thing for small business when it
Nice.
comes to legislation. So that's another way that I help. I volunteer my time with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and I've got a mentee that I'm working with, a young business owner who I'm so proud of. Three Little Birds granola. She's amazing. But I think there are lots of ways. One of the great things about being in the position that I'm in right now is that I have an organization that's amazing. And they go off and do all kinds of things, and because they are so good at what they do, I get to do things like that. I get to go
Mhm.
volunteer. I get to go speak to people. I've got a number of sessions coming up, workshops that I'm doing that, I love doing, and I've done them for years, but now I'm doing more of them. So it's fun.
I
There's
love
there's
it.
a next chapter for everyone, and it's important that you think about it. Otherwise, you will do what one business owner I know did: sold his business, bought a big boat, went and traveled Europe, came home, sat on the couch, and said, well, what the do I do now?
We do get caught up in doing this, don't we?
Yes, we do. We love it.
Yeah. Folks, please reach out to Cynthia Kay. She's a friend. She's somebody that I admire in business. I
Oh,
have
well,
since day
thank you,
one.
Brad. I
Um,
appreciate it.
I still remember you on stage, talking, and all of us leaning forward and going, "Whoa!" It was like every single thing that came out of your mouth was nuggets of golden wisdom
Oh,
for
thank
business
you.
owners. So get in there, hire her. If you don't have time to take a night off to go to your daughter's recital or to join a board, you're not managing your business correctly.
That is
And
correct.
time management is not about time. It's about managing yourself. So
Mm.
I recommend Cynthia Kay. Also pick up her book, Small Business, Big Success. And I love the subtitle more than anything, Proven Strategies to Beat the Odds and Grow a Great Business. And I always find that the fun part is coming up with the tagline in any book. I really
It's
do.
hard.
It is. It's not easy. Hey, everybody, if you want to see a good example of Cynthia's work with her master visual storytelling abilities, we're going to show her sizzle reel right now. Roll the tape.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Kay, the CK of CK & Co. I'm based here, but I spend a lot of time here as I travel to teach, speak, and advocate for small business. In 35 years, I've learned a lot about what it takes to start and run a successful business. You have to be operationally efficient, respond faster than ever before, be creative, not to mention manage 5 generations working side by side. It can be really challenging, but it's also energizing and a lot of fun. And I can help with insights and unconventional strategies that are shared in a variety of ways. What I offer is down in the trenches, practical, actionable things that you can do to survive and, more importantly, thrive. So, what can I design for you and your organization? Let's talk.
We're trying to go onward and upward.
Everyone is so friendly and they genuinely want to help you with everything that you do.
I love the work you do. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
besides the visual storytelling part, media production is something I have a background in, and it's really the market has opened up. It's almost exploded since we've had these tools like GoPro, and then you have Premiere and Final Cut Pro available just about anybody. You
Mhm.
can edit your own tools. I mean, I started when we used Scotch tape and razor blades. You probably remember those as well.
I edited film at my first job.
Yeah, I did slideshows. We had to put them in West mounts, glass mounted. You remember those
Oh, yeah.
for big
We're both the
corporations?
same age.
Yeah, and so we did the split panels, so you'd have 36 projectors into a 1/2 pan,
Yep.
and with a mask in each one. And if somebody didn't lock that ring, you had a whole slideshow on the floor. Whoa, it was annoying. And then I specialized in 70 millimeter um, slides for the big shows before we had high
Oh,
definition screens.
wow.
And I didn't even have to use a loop to look at the film when it would come back. You could just look at it with your naked eye. You didn't need a loop. It was
Oh,
crazy.
man.
And we used those giant Hasselblad projectors. They were big clunky
Oh,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, horrible. But it was, I mean, when you're launching new cars every year, like Lincoln and BMW, there was nothing more beautiful than putting those
Oh, I know.
chromes up on a 70 millimeter screen. So it's crazy.
Hmm.
Anyways, Cynthia Kay, I have a lightning round. I appreciate so much that you were here on Awakened Nation today, but I do have a lightning round and I'm not going to let you go.
Okay,
Uh,
let's go.
okay, my first question is, um, what is your favorite dish from your home country? You're Greek, and what is your favorite? Because I know what my favorites are.
Okay, so my favorite is dolmades.
Okay.
Dolmades is stuffed grape leaves, and you
Yes.
go and you pick wild grape leaves, and then you make either a meat or a vegetable mixture, and you roll it up and serve it with a lemon sauce after it's cooked. It's awesome.
I've had the vegetable ones, and they do not last long in this house.
Oh,
By
I
the way,
know.
my girl
They're
will.
like candy.
I know they literally are like candy, but I would love to try the ones, the meat ones. That would be delicious.
Mhm. Well, come
I,
for dinner some night.
I would love that. I love gyros, shawarma.
Okay.
I love the lamb. Once a year in Pennsylvania, we would roast a lamb, and do it just it's succulent. Love that. And being Hungarian, we always put a little spice in our stuff.
A
So
little paprika.
just a little bit, like
Just a
till it's
touch.
orange. My grandmother used to put paprika on eggs. So it's the best. My second question is, do you have a favorite memory?
A favorite memory. Wow. Oh, that one's hard. I guess one of my most favorite memories would be when my dad took me to the father-daughter dance. And my dad, if you knew anything about my dad did not like dancing. He was a bridge player, just give him a deck of cards, right?
Right.
But that was probably one of my most favorite things was
Wow.
was going to father-daughter dance with my dad. He was an amazing guy.
He loved you so much, he was willing to dance for you.
He was.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful memory. My third and final question is, do you think you'll ever retire?
No. Well, that's a really good question, and it's one honestly that I have explored and I'm working on. So I am in the phase of my life where I am looking at a plan. Do I ever think I will quit working? No. Do I think I will be doing what I'm doing now for the rest of my life? No.
Right.
It will be, but my passion really is the writing of the books, the speaking, the teaching, a little less of the doing. So I'll move that direction.
There you go. Maybe you'll have a 4-day work week instead of an 8-day work week, right?
Hey, I've gotten pretty good. I took the whole Memorial Day weekend off.
What?
Yeah.
You do know today's
Slacker.
today's Wednesday, by the way. Just a reminder.
Yeah, there we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia Kay, reach out to her. Please pick up her book, Small Business, Big Success, Proven Strategies to Beat the Odds and Grow a Great Business. Fantastic book, a phenomenal read. So far, what I've gotten through, I'm really enjoying it. And also go to bizthinking.com. That's her blog. And what are your other URLs once again?
CynthiaKBiz.com and thinkck.com. So either one
Thanks.
of those would be great.
Calvin Klein, right?
Oh, yes. No, Cynthia Kay.
We've got to get you a logo that we can put on everything. CK.
There's my
So
logo right there.
there you go. Oh, I like that. It looks like like the edge of a lens. I like that. Very cool.
Hey, Brad, thank you so much. I
Sure.
really had fun talking with you as I do. So let's not make it too many years before we get together again.
No, we're going to have you back on in season 8. This is season 7, and
Yeah.
we're winding it down by July. But I would love to have you back on as our business guru strategist to talk to small business owners, because those are my favorite stories, probably because I am one. but because if I talk to a C-level person, they talk about all the money they've spent and the budgets they've done in the big business. But when you talk to an entrepreneur, they talk about their struggles, their pains, their lost marriage, they're biting their fingernails on Thursday night because they have to do payroll the next day. Those are the kind of stories I really want to talk to people about. So yeah, you're going to be back on. Thank you,
All right.
Cynthia.
Thanks,
for being-
Brad.
You're welcome. Hey, everybody, don't forget to tune in next week. We'll have another extraordinary guest here on Awakened Nation. Until then, bye-bye for now. Bye, Cynthia. Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share this episode out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success is because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.